Hello ladies and gentlemen, that's right, ladies as well, because I got now 2% of ladies of watching me, so how you doing? Anyway guys, I promised some airbrushing tutorials, very airbrushing basics, introduction to it if you will, and I delivered. Today we're going to cover the very basics of the massive subject which is airbrushing. I'm going to show you my equipment, my airbrushes, what do I use, my compressor. I'll try to explain a few very vaguely basic things about it, so hopefully if you're interested in starting airbrushing, if you're interested in giving that a go, hopefully that will clear some things up for you, and yeah, we take it from there. So what do we need to start airbrushing, to start the new journey of airbrushing garden and enjoy it to their full potential? Well, obviously we need an airbrush of some sorts. They come in different size and shapes, but the principle behind it is very much the same. We need a compressor with different adapters and fittings and reducers, which is on the floor. We're going to cover that in a second. And obviously you need paint. You can start with one color or have multiple colors, buy a pack of colors with a reducer, whatever. So that's the three fundamental things we need to have to start our airbrushing journey. So how to get started? Now, first thing you obviously need to get is an airbrush. People asking me what kind of airbrush should I get, you know. That was my first airbrush. It's not great airbrush, but it's not the cheap shitty Chinese airbrush, you know, either. Chinese airbrush are just made of lipstick and they don't fucking work, so don't bother with that. Obviously buying a super expensive Iwata, you know, is gonna set you back 3, 4, even 500 pounds. You don't want to do that when you're just starting airbrushing, because you don't know whether airbrushing is going to be for you. You don't know whether you're going to enjoy it, whether you're going to find time for it, you know. So buying a super expensive top of the market airbrush, it's definitely not a good option. But buying super cheap Chinese piece of shit airbrush, that is definitely not an option either, because it's not going to perform and it's going to put you off airbrushing because you won't get any results whatsoever. So where is the solution for that? You go in between, and I'll show you by far my favorite airbrush I have right now. That is a fucking workhorse of an airbrush, and you can perform magic with it. For what I use, it's the ultimate weapon of choice, and it's not gonna break a bank. Before I tell you what it is, let me just say I bought this airbrush, I paid money for it, you know, hard-earned money. Nobody gave it to me, nobody's asking me to advertise this particular brand of airbrushes. I only do it because I really enjoy working with this one and the other one I've got as well. And yeah, if I didn't enjoy it, look at it, you know, it's very well used, you know, it's got paint all over the place, in a cup and all that stuff. I try to keep it as clean as I can. But I use it on a daily basis, you know. Most of my work is done with this airbrush and the other one, same brand. So it's not advertisement, I'm not sucking, you know, to anybody. This is my personal choice, and hopefully it's going to help you to take your choice as well. Right, so what airbrush do I recommend for you to get as your very first airbrush that is quality and is not going to break your bank? I'm using Badger airbrush, and the model is Patriot 105. by Badger, the original Patriot 105. There's a new one as well right now, but that's what I'm using. I got it a few years ago. It was around back then, and I absolutely love that airbrush. I got it with a standard size needle and nozzle, which is quite large, and I got a extra needle and extra nozzle setup for final details. Obviously it's not super fine, it's just a little bit finer than the original setup. That is quite large spray pattern from this airbrush, but it's a workhorse for what I do. Is absolutely amazing. I use it for every true fire job and every kind of bigger job. If I need more details on it, I just swap the needle and nozzle inside. I'll show you later how to do that. But if I need super fine detail, I also got Badger Renegade Chrome airbrush, which is very much the same, similar looking thing, but it's got much finer needle and nozzle setup for very ultimate super fine details. So that's what I use. That's my weapon of choice. They are Badger airbrushes, and the one I would recommend for you to get as a first airbrush is a Patriot 105, and get yourself for extra, you know, a few pounds, a needle and nozzle setup. the smaller diameter. This airbrush was, when I got it a few years back, I think £110. I paid for it. I'm pretty sure you can get it secondhand. I'm pretty sure you can get it right now on a discount because the new model is out there. So I'm pretty sure about £100 you can still purchase this airbrush. Once again, it's a Baja made in USA Patriot 105. You can see it probably here. Baja Patriot 105. I would recommend, highly recommend, to get this model and this airbrush as your first airbrush. Once again, guys, this is my personal choice. I've learned taught myself with this airbrush and the other one. I truly trust these airbrushes. The support behind this airbrush from Ken Baja himself is absolutely amazing. You message him on Facebook, he replies to you within 5 minutes usually, and is always on the case. So support behind the brand is second to none. But the quality of this is pretty amazing too. Right, so you got your airbrush now sorted. Now you need to get a compressor, or well, I would recommend getting a compressor, not spray cans kind of thing. Compressor is definitely a option, a way to go. So here we go. That is just my standard compressor. Nothing special about it. Is a little noisy bastard, you know. That's just a regular compressor as it goes. Electric. Plug it in. It makes a lot of noise for about 2 or 3 minutes. It pumps itself with air over there, and it holds it, you know, until the pressure drops down. The pressure gauge is filthy. It pumps all the way to whatever that is, and then once the pressure drops down, it'll switch itself on for a little bit to pump up the pressure again, and then it switches itself off, then it stands by until you use up that air that is inside the tank. And what I got over here, which is also very filthy, this is a reducer. You're gonna need a reducer. Mine is look like this. Yours may look completely different. The reducer is basically its purpose is to reduce simple air that is coming out from the compressor, go in here, and through this hose I'm gonna connect it to my airbrush. So I don't want the full blast, full power going out to my airbrush. I want to control this, and I control it with this little knob over here. I usually working around 20 psi. I drop it up and down wherever I need to, but I'm working about 20 psi. On top of that, I've got some moisture trap over here. Some people prefer the moisture trap on the airbrush. I keep my over here. Moisture trap is to catch all the water, all the moisture that is being in the air, because there's moisture in the air. Once you compress it, you got water droplets coming out here, and they can go through the hose and mess up your artwork while you are working with it. So I'm making sure the moisture is being trapped over here. So there you go. Nothing special about it. It's a compressor, a noisy one. I'm lucky enough I'm working in the garage that nobody's complaining about it. If you have to work from the privacy of your own home, your living room, that's probably not the best option for you. You want to look into silent options. There are plenty out there, and money wise you can spend anything from £50 to £1,000. So just need to suit your budget, you know. Get a simple enough compressor, anything that will support your airbrush. And the last piece of a puzzle is obviously your paint, your colors, and all the additives to it. So I would recommend, if you're starting airbrushing, using water-based colors. A, because they don't stink, and B, because they're very forgiving, and you can spray them pretty much anywhere and then just like wipe them off or whatever, you know. Water-based colors is definitely the way to go. And over the last few years, water-based superb quality. They are probably even better in many ways than the solvent-based one. So what I'm using either Wicked colors, or Createx, or Autoborn. These all are made by the same people, and they completely interchangeable. You can mix them together. You can mix two colors together from Wicked colors and from Autoborn and Createx. They are for a different purpose, a different reason, you know, but porous and non-porous surfaces, but we don't want to go into too many details about it. There are obviously additives to it. This is a gloss top coat. It's not a actual paint, but you can mix them, you know. You can spray this on top of that, and it's not gonna create any bad effects. You would probably need an airbrush cleaner as well of some sort. The benefit with water-based colors, you can clean your airbrush with water, but the airbrush cleaner has got some extra additive to it to help reduce that paint inside and and clean it up. Obviously you will need a reducer as well for the colors because they come quite thick, so you need to play with the paint consistency. A huge mammoth story for another episode. Yeah, that's about it. 3 pieces you need: airbrush, compressor and paint with some additives, you know. So that's all you need to start the airbrushing journey. Let's have a look at the airbrush right now, shall we? So very basics. How is the airbrush working? Well, it's quite simple. You connect the air supply over here, your air hose from a compressor, you set up the pressure. Now you got air feed. Once you press that, I'm talking about dual action airbrush right now, because that's what I'm using. Once you press it down, you press that button down, that trigger, that releases the air. That means the air is coming up here from the hose and blowing through the nozzle, through the front of the airbrush. And when you pull it back, you release basically the needle that is inside here. You open the nozzle, and that releases the paint that sits in the top of the on the cap. That's a gravity fed airbrush, by the way. So basically you put down for air and back for paint. The further back you pull, the more paint is going to come out from the front. So if you pull it just on its own, nothing is going to happen. You need to add air to it. So you press down for air and back for air. That's why it's called dual action airbrush, because first action is down for air and second action you can control the paint, how much is coming out. Simple, right? Airbrushes comes in many different sizes and shapes. I mean, for example, this one is a side feed airbrush, unlike the gravity feed, which the paint sits in a cup over here and the gravity kind of pushes it down, and then while the air is blowing this way, it kind of creates the suction, a bit of like a carburetor. So it sucks through there, atomizes the paint. This one is pretty much the same. It's also sucked by that, you know, vacuum that's created over there, but the paint sits on the side of it. The benefit of this airbrush is when you're working closely, you can see very clearly there's no cap in the way. If you put it this way, if you are the user, you can see clearly on your canvas there's no cap in a way, like on this one. See, if you work on this one, you cannot see very closely to your canvas because you got the cap sitting on the side. The side one is you don't have that problem. You can only trigger for that reason. But you know, it's a personal preference. They work very much exactly the same. I like the gravity, the top fed cap, because that's how I learned with, you know. But you may be completely different. You just need to play with it, experiment, and see what's the best option for you. There are airbrushes as well with a suction cup underneath, and you put a paint, basically you can screw it on straight underneath here. There are dual and single action airbrushes, but I don't use them. I never use them, you know, so I can't really comment on that. But there are many different airbrushes out there. The principle is very much the same, but they look different and they work slightly different, you know. I prefer this. Is it the best? No, it's best for me. But is it the best around there? Absolutely not. Right guys, I'm going to stop it here because, well, let's face it, it's a massive subject, airbrushing. And this, what I've just tried to show you and explain you over here, it's a very, and I mean very basic and very vague explanation, a start of the airbrushing basics of my tutorials. But we gotta start somewhere, right? Well, I hope that kind of explains the very basic of it if you are looking to get something for yourself. I hope that helps a little bit. I promise you we're gonna fire up the compressor and connect the airbrush and maybe even spray some kind of patterns on the next episode. So stay tuned for that. It's definitely coming. Don't know when, but I'm gonna record another one. Hopefully that very first episode has been a little bit helpful to any of you. I know there are probably much better explanations out there on the internet, on YouTube and everywhere else, and a little bit more interesting, probably a little bit more professional, but this is what I do, this is what I have, so I hope it helps. Hey guys, so thank you very much for watching today, and until next time, have a beer, rock hard, and I'll see you very soon.